made, and there's no word on the motive for the shooting. Michigan state police beefed up patrols on Detroit freeways after a 2-year-old boy was shot and killed in June. His brother was also wounded. Their father was driving their family home from a basketball game when a car pulled up next to them and someone inside started firing shots into the family's vehicle. The suspects say they thought they were targeting someone else.
America is listening to Fox News.
Tunay na kaibigan at handa para sa inyo. Ang bangko ng kinabukasan, laging maaasahan. Land Pacific, where others dug branches, we place roots.
Great news, Guam! Chili's 2 for Dining is back. Enjoy a full-on meal deal made for 2 for just $35. Start with 2 Coca-Cola beverages, an appetizer to share, and 2 mouth-watering entrees like the sizzling personal fajitas, the mouth-watering honey chipotle steak and shrimp, or Chili's world-famous fall-off-the-bone baby back ribs. Available for a limited time. Dine in today or call 648-7377 to place to-go orders. Chili's is located on the 2nd floor of Tumon Sands Plaza. Chili's. Savor the moment.
Well, Poland's health ministry has issued instructions to doctors confirming that it is legal to end a pregnancy when the woman's health or life is in danger. The document comes in reaction to the hospital death of a young mother whose pregnancy had medical problems. Her family said doctors held off performing an abortion even though her fetus had severe medical issues. And a tragedy at the Astro World Festival in Houston, Texas has left 8 people dead, and now many are in mourning.
Officials say at this point they're not taking anything off the table, including the possibility that drugs may have been involved. Investigators are aware of at least several instances during the show where medical personnel treated fans with a medication for opioid overdose, including one incident involving a security officer. It's too early to say what kind of role, if any, this played in the stampede itself, though, since dozens of folks who were there have talked about how hard it was for anyone to breathe, given how tightly packed everyone was as the crowd pushed forward. But this story has just become all the more heartbreaking as we've learned how young the victims are. The youngest were 14 and 16 years old, and the others were in their early to mid-20s. As of last night, 13 people were still in the hospital, and of those, 5 are under the age of 18.
Fox's Garrett Tenney, and brief delays continue for the next manned SpaceX missions.
High wind off the Florida coast, prompting SpaceX to delay the return of 4 astronauts. They were supposed to leave the International Space Station Sunday with a planned splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico on Monday morning. But wind gusts exceeding safety limits forced SpaceX to bump that departure to Monday afternoon with a nighttime return. SpaceX, meantime, is still aiming for a Wednesday night launch of its next crew for NASA. That flight has also been delayed as well by bad weather and an astronaut's undisclosed medical issue. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Hafaday! Konnichiwa!
Patois! Ciao! Enter for a chance to win the 76 Circle K World Cuisine Giveaway. Be one of 3 lucky winners to win a passport of free food from around the world at over 15 different local restaurants. Just stop by any 76 Circle K, purchase $35 or more in fuel to get an entry form. Drive by today and taste the world with 76 Circle K's World Cuisine Giveaway. Visit 76circlekguam.com for more details. Some conditions apply. Circle K, take it easy.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. Zero down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's a great way to start a week. This is perhaps the best time of the week, Jose. Right at the end of the respectful reading of the Second Amendment on the first day of a week, meaning we got 5 whole days of tall tales. Wait. No tall tales on Thursday.
No tall tales on Thursday.
There's no tall tales on Thursday. Yeah.
Why is that?
It's Veterans Day.
That's not that sad.
No, it's not. Not having tall tales is a sad thing. However, if it'll help the veterans, we'll make the sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to Zemi Ikutni. My backwards bilingual play on words that translates literally to press the meat. We turn it around so it sounds like meet the press. Chuck Todd hates it because it's so much better than his version of Meet the Press that he can't stand the competition. I go through the editorials of each of the papers. I ferret out the mistakes, correct them on the air, and at the end of the exercise, if one of the editorials is superior to the other, it will be awarded the coveted Blue Star. And it's been said that careers have been made and lost on the award of a Blue Star. I've also heard it said that if you're standing outside the door of the editorial boardroom of the winning editorial on the day that I award the Blue Star, you could hear the champagne corks popping. That's a cause for celebration. Well, here's what the Daily News says today. Our view. Arigatou gozaimashita. To tabby salad. Yeah, that's what it says. Arigatou gozaimashita. I would translate that for you, except watashi wa nihongo wakarimasen, which means I don't understand Japanese.
Hey.
Very good, Jose.
That's all I know.
Yeah. You know what do you call a person who can speak 3 languages? Trilingual.
Mm-hmm.
A person who can speak 2 languages, bilingual. A person that can speak 1 language, an American. Guam and Japan rekindled their long-standing relationship when the cast and crew of Tabby Salad arrived on island to shoot a 2-part travel feature. Not only did highlighting Guam give the island some needed exposure to about 5 million Japanese viewers, but it placed the island back into the minds of its loyal customers, the Japanese tourist. It's no secret that Guam's tourist industry relied on Asian countries like Japan and South Korea before the pandemic. Just last month, former governor and Guam Visitors Bureau President Carl Gutierrez reminisced about the days when Japan market dominated Guam. In the good old days, Japan was definitely our bread and butter. Nearly 50% of our marketing dollars were invested in Japan, Gutierrez said. The industry responded with incentives and increased their seat capacity to our main gateways of Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, and Nagoya. Notably, in 1998, Guam had 14 direct flights from Guam to Japan. 14 flights. The momentum of our relationship with Japanese tourists continued until the new millennium. From the local music legends to local adults whose first jobs were in the tourist industry, The bond between the Japanese market and Guam felt impossible to break. Seeing a family of tourists walking down the streets of Tumon or enjoying the warm skies and waters of our beaches lifted our spirits. It was good to know our visitors loved our island. But then the unthinkable Wuhan virus. Let me try that again, Jose. But then the unthinkable Wuhan virus. I was thinking about the... Want to try one more time? But then the unthinkable Wuhan virus. Ah, there you go. Very good, Jose. Much of last year, Guam was stripped away from the people who fed her economy and brought the positivity and excitement as new and regular visitors to the island. Tumon streets and beaches were quiet and businesses had to make tough decisions. More than a year has passed with some businesses recovering, restaurants opening to full capacity, schools slowly returning via cohort schedule, and a feeling of confidence circulating. Most residents have a measure of protection with the vaccine and the recently released booster shots, and Wuhan virus cases and hospitalizations are on a downward trend. The arrival of the Tabby Salad production team via collaboration with United Airlines and GVB was perfect timing to show that Guam is ready to welcome tourism again. We saw this as an opportunity to get travelers in Guam's primary market excited about experiencing Guam again when restrictions ease, said Sam Shinohara, United's Managing Director of Airport Operations for Asia Pacific. With that, we thank United Airlines, GVB, and the cast and crew of Tabby Salad for showcasing the familiarity and fun Guam brings for Japanese visitors. So repeating again, arigatou gozaimashita.
Hi.
All right. Not exactly an exciting editorial. Kind of like, let's have a big cheer for Japan. Are you with me? Give me a J. Give me an A. All right, here's the Post. Guam needs more apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship opportunities. There's a proven connection between education and quality job opportunities as a path to escape low-skilled careers and financial limitations. To the credit of countless people, businesses, and organizations, our island has trained thousands of residents to be qualified for good-paying jobs in construction, energy, telecommunications, and more. Telecommunications, yeah, like being on the radio. You know, I started in 1966, Jose.
Wow.
I was a newscaster at another radio, in fact, the only radio station on the island in 1966.
Do you have that like teletype sound in the background?
Well, we had the stateside wire and the Manila wire, and that's where we got our news copy. Yeah. Okay, back to the editorial here. Here's how the model known as the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program works. Eligible businesses that employ apprentices enrolled in the program and invest in their training receive a credit on their gross receipts tax liability equal to 50% of approved costs. Millions of dollars every year are credited to participating companies to help offset investments made in apprentices' wages, benefits on the job training, books, tuition, and personal protective equipment. Just recently, 41 students from GCA Trades Academy graduated with certificates of completion that qualify them to be hired as skilled workers in the construction industry. The latest cadre from a total of 4,200 who have been trained to date at the Guam Contractors Association Academy's Tizan campus. Now, this is not the government. This is the Contractors Association, a group of private contractors who have formed a nonprofit and do this training. According to a release from the Academy, a wide variety of training programs are offered, including electrical, plumbing, carpentry, HVAC, construction craft labor, safety, project management, welding, heavy equipment operation, astronaut. No. I just put that in there to see if people were paying attention. Classes are offered for all abilities and levels, often at no cost to the apprentice. But more companies can enjoy these benefits, leading to more residents gaining skills in the emerging industries. Due to the success of the program, the tax credit has been extended and expanded regularly by senators and governors past and present. The latest improvement, enacted in October 2019, directs the local Department of Labor to emphasize a number of fields in its annual offerings of jobs eligible to be part of the program, including occupations in the field of Chamorro cultural practices. Chamorro cultural practices. Well, yeah, you know, they teach you that before you go in the house, you take off your shoes. They teach you how to nging when you encounter Sinet. They probably spend some time with the music and dances that Frank Ramone invented in the late 1980s.
I just don't. It is not knocking Chamorro cultural practices, but how is that a vocation?
Yeah. Well, there is, of course.
Seems more academic.
Yeah, but there is, of course, a Chamorro establishment here. You know, perhaps 3 or 4 dozen people whose primary occupation is being Chamorro. Yeah. You know, Michael Bavacqua down at the museum, and Melvin Wanpat, the separatists, etc., Hope Cristobal, and all the folks on the Chamorro Language Commission. Next item on the list, human resources development, office technology, medical coding and building, as you were billing, information technology, website coding and development, finance and accounting, cosmetology, automotive, engineering, agriculture, and aquaculture. With the Wuhan virus pandemic upending our island's tourism-reliant economy, now is the perfect time for workers who were laid off to explore new careers. Similarly, businesses can take advantage of this existing program to branch out and leverage the available tax credits to explore new customer bases or offer new products and services. We hope lawmakers and the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration take a look at this model and find ways to use the hundreds of millions of dollars in federal pandemic aid as a funding source for short-term expansion. After all, other industries struggling to keep their proverbial heads above water could use the assistance with training new hires. Other ongoing initiatives to grow the island's economy could use the help too. The governor's economic diversification working group, already touted by those involved both in and out of government, is looking to attract companies to conduct alternative dispute resolution, captive insurance, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and more. Surely these efforts will be more successful if we prepare local workers to be hired in jobs created by these industries through the already successful GRAP. Obviously, more companies can afford the upfront investment to participate in federal pandemic bailout funds can be used to increase the subsidies offered to them. The island system to train apprentices and pre-apprentices has been described by supporters as a win-win-win. Workers win by getting job opportunities and the compensation that comes with them. Businesses win by being rewarded with government support and awesome employees when investing in and hiring driven local talent. And ultimately, the island wins when more businesses and residents are get on good financial footing. It means more overall growth in our local economy. It means more people can afford to buy homes, raise their children, contribute to a better society for it all. That's the future worth the investment. All right, I'm not going to take issue with any of the things in the editorial. I just caution, though, that if all we're doing is training people to do the things that don't bring any money to the island, we're really not going very far. It's the old example of Jose and I make a deal. I'll wash Jose's car every week for $10 and he'll mow my lawn every week for $10. But then we decide we should be better, more highly rewarded. So I tell Jose, I'll wash his car, but for $20, and he raises the price for mowing my lawn to $20. And we're both really happy because we've doubled our income.
Isn't that local economy?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So unless we're bringing in wealth from outside the island, all we're doing is, just transferring the same amount of money around here on island. Some get more, some get less. But what we want is, we don't want to have people thinking that the island is a zero-sum game, that the only way one person can get more money is if another person gets less. Instead of doing that, instead of everybody fighting over a bigger piece of the pie, we need to make the pie bigger. And we need to do that by reducing government regulations, make it easy for companies to come in here and set up businesses. We've got a very attractive tax shelter that we can offer businesses that want to come here. We need to use these things. Okay, it's a little early for a break yet, isn't it, Jose?
Just a little.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's the card for today. I've got the Ancestral Lands Commission versus Public Law 36-34. I've got the Parole Board versus Public Law 36-34. I've got John Beneventi versus Clint. Now you know what that's going to be about. I've got Troy versus Land Scams. I'll tell you, Troy has really come forth with some scholarship in his scandal sheet called Candid News about the perils of dealing in real estate on Guam and some of the bad things that can and have happened. And then I'm going to go to Jonathan Turley for Yankee Doodle versus Brandon. I'll give you a little historical information on how things like "Let's Go Brandon" become political slogans. And then second to the last thing is Caroline Products versus the Insular Cases. And this is a different view of the SSI phenomenon, Social Security, Supplemental Social Income, SSI. Because, of course, we've had Tina Rose Munia Barnes beating up on the insular cases and, asking that the insular cases be overruled, et cetera, so that we could get SSI. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. You're going to need to have your law and order notebooks handy when we get to Caroline Products versus insular cases. And then the final on the card is not a bout at all. It's an assignment, homework. We haven't ever assigned homework here on Tall Tales, but I'm going to assign some homework at the end of the show today. Well, it won't be hard. It'll be very interesting, of course, and you'll like it. Okay, first item on the card, Ancestral Lands Commission versus Public Law 36-34, which I wrote down backwards, didn't I, Jose?
Yeah, it was easy to find, though.
36-34.
It is 34-36.
34-36. It is 34 so I wrote it down correctly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. 36. It was in this legislature. So Public Law 36, number 34.
Okay, yeah. 36-34 is the way to put it down on paper. And that was, I think, it's not a complicated bill. It's not long. But I think it's very helpful for citizens to keep track of their government. Because what it requires is this. If there is going to be a meeting of a board or commission, the board or commission must give 2 notices of the meeting, 1 week before the meeting and 2 days before the meeting. That's been on the books for quite some time. But that law was amended by Senator Brown to say that now that notice of the meeting must include an agenda of the meeting. So if you're following a particular board or an issue on a board, you'll know when the issue that you're interested in is going to come before that board. Before, it was guesswork, phone calls, the urban telegraph, the bamboo telegraph, etc. But some agencies still haven't caught on that when they publish these notices, they've got to put the agenda of the meeting that they're giving notice in that notice. And if they don't, the penalty is pretty stiff, because the penalty is that if you don't do it, if a board or commission doesn't do it, any action they took in that meeting is void. Whether it's an action that was properly noticed, if there's one flaw in that notice, the whole meeting is basically a waste of time. So here's today's offenders. We start out with the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. Now this is important stuff because they make motions to award land to people. And if they haven't complied with the law, you know, it could be a real hardship for someone who thinks that he was awarded title to Blackacre, starts making plans to improve Blackacre, et cetera, and then it turns out that his conveyance was void because the Ancestral Lands Commission violated the law. And here's how their notice reads. The Guam Ancestral Lands Commission board meeting will be held, Lands Commission board meeting. How can a commission have a board meeting?
B-O-R-E-D?
Yeah. November 10 at 2 p.m. The meeting will be open to the public via Zoom. Wow, that's great. Topic, Guam Ancestral Lands Commission Zoom meeting. That's what it's about. That's the agenda. The time, how to join the Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. The agenda may be viewed at the following link. That's not how you do it. You got to put it in the paper, guys. So this meeting that they're having on November 10, Wednesday, is actually a waste of time because everything they're doing will be void. Visitors Bureau, right below it, same thing. The Visitors Bureau will hold a regular meeting of the Korea Marketing Committee on Tuesday, November 9 at 3:30 in the GVV's main conference room and online via GoToMeeting, etc. The formal agenda for the meeting will be available via link on meeting day. No, guys, you can't do that. Yeah, I know it's a lot easier. And I know that the new law requires you to actually decide more than 7 days before the meeting what you're going to do at the meeting, because you have to come to grips with those questions so that you can get your notice to the paper on the 8th day so it runs on the 7th day. And I know it's just a horrible thing to ask people that service these boards and commissions to plan. Why can't they just kind of decide what they're going to do when the meeting starts? And if people don't like it, well, you know, you just have to come to every meeting. All right, same thing. We've got the parole board. Obviously, the parole board deals with some very heavy-duty subjects. Should convict XYZ be granted parole? Should he be allowed to leave the prison compound and go out into the community? That's what parole is. Now, here's their idea of an agenda. Guam Parole Board's regular hearing for the month of November will be on Thursday, November 18 at 2:30 p.m. at the Parole Service Division Office, 203 Aspinall Avenue, Hagatna. The agenda: 1, call to order. 2, roll call. 3, old business, parole desirability cases. 4, new business, parole desirability and preliminary revocation cases. 5, deliberation. Deliberation of what? 6, adjourn. This is horrible.
They Googled that.
Yeah. This is just awful, because let's say that you know a victim of a crime that one of these guys has committed, and you want to go to that meeting, and if you can, you want to say to the chairman, whose name you probably will recognize, you want to say to the chairman, "No way, Jose." Yeah. So then the announcement goes on to say, for more information regarding items on the agenda or individuals requiring special accommodations, please call the Parole Services Division. It just isn't how you do it, guys. So somebody is going to get burned really bad on this. Somebody who is in charge of putting together notices of meeting. When something important is declared void because people can't follow the law. Now, you'd expect that the parole board would be leading the way here and following the law.
It sounds a little serious.
It does.
I mean, everything is serious, but weighing GVB and parole board has a little bit of heavier burden.
It really does. So far, I've only seen a couple agencies that got it right. The Public Utilities Commission and the Civil Service Commission. Civil Service Commission used to do the same way as everybody else. So you didn't know what case was going to be heard on what night. And you may very well have wanted to go to watch one of those cases. Now you know. All right, next item on the card is John Beneventi versus Clint. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to that.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so this item on the card is John Beneventi versus Clint. Now, we know that John Beneventi is the general manager of the Guam Power Authority. He has been for a long time. I would say that John Beneventi has done a very good job and a very hard job. Clint is a senator, and I'd like to be able to say the same thing about him, but I can't. And Clint has sort of taken it on as a cause célèbre to fight with the CCU, the two utilities, the Power Authority, and John Beneventi on every turn. I'll start out here with a letter that John wrote to Vice Speaker and Chairman of the Rules Committee, Tina Rose Munya Barnes. I was able to obtain this letter. And he talks about Bill 213-36. Bill 213-36 will allow the Guam Power Authority to proceed with critical energy projects that will substantially improve air quality, lower rates, and increase power service reliability, all positively impacting the student community at Jose Middle School, all who live and or work in Pidi, and all of Guam. And then John goes down and traces the development of construction of power plants, alternative energy, and related subjects. And the penultimate paragraph of his letter, he says, Bill 213-36 has been referred to Senator Rigel's committee, of which you are a member. On October 28, I requested that Senator Rigel schedule a public hearing at the soonest available time. Makes sense. Now, by way of background, GPA wants to build a 43 megawatt generator, diesel generator, in Petey on the site of what we could call the Power Authority's generation site. You know, where Cabras 1, Cabras 2, Petey Power, all of those generators were. But the 23rd Guam legislature passed a law that said you couldn't build a power plant within 1,500 feet of a school. Well, Jose Rios is within that radius, is about 1,200 feet away. So 213-36 would amend that law to allow this plant to be built. Now, the plant that they're intending to build replaces one that's the same distance from Petey Middle. But it's a much cleaner power plant and puts less pollutants into the air. So this would seem to be one of those, as we say, no-brainers. You don't even need to get into the question, how did they decide in the beginning that 1,500 feet was the right distance? So it's kind of a no-brainer. But this is what what John says. I requested that Senator Rigel schedule a public hearing at the soonest available time. As of the date of this letter, I have not received a response from Senator Rigel or his office. Well, John, what's going on here? You don't understand. Senators don't have to answer letters. They don't have to answer the phone. They don't have to return calls. I went through the same thing with Clint myself, you know, because you remember when we had the runaway raises by the Power Authority, by CCU and some other boards and commissions? I drafted up a bill that said that none of these raises could be effective until they had lain before the legislature for 90 days. So during that 90 days, if the legislature doesn't like it, they can pass a law doing away with it. So I sent it to Clint, no acknowledgement or receipt, which I always wonder, you send somebody an email. Ordinarily, when I send you an email, I get something back that says, oh, got it, Bob, or something like that. You usually expect something like that. If it's not a full response and it's at least yeah, I got it, I'll get back to you. Nothing. So a few days went by and I wondered, well, was the mail actually received? And I called the office and I said, Senator Rigel was not here. Didn't return my call. I tried his cell phone. He didn't. Anyhow, there never was a response to that bill that I'd sent down. And you just expect more from almost anyone that you correspond with, but certainly people in the public limelight, senators, people in the public eye, et cetera, especially when it's the manager of the Power Authority writing to you about something that's really important. Now, maybe you can't read the email and shoot an answer back and say, okay, the public hearing is scheduled for next week. But you can write back and say, I got your email, John. I'll get it on as soon as I can schedule it. You don't just ignore it. That's not only not good politics, that's just plain rude. And I had much higher expectations for Clint, having worked with him before at another radio station, et cetera. So then there's a story that ran in the Post today. GPA asked for community support for its energy plan. In recent days, Senator Clint Rigel, having oversight of the Power Authority, released statements containing misinformation about the new Ukadu power plant. We are disappointed at his lack of knowledge and understanding of what it takes to provide reliable, resilient, clean energy at an affordable cost. But it will not stop us from our work to ensure Guam's energy security. The mandate to achieve 50% renewable energy by 2035 and 100% by 2045 was set by the Guam legislature. How we achieve the milestone should be left to the industry professionals at the Power Authority. The new Ukadu power plant will save millions of dollars eventually in avoided fuel costs, resulting in lower power bills. The new plant, coupled with 25% renewable energy sources GPA is implementing, will reduce our annual fuel consumption by about 49 million gallons in 2025, reducing fuel costs by about $100 million a year. This is great for our island economy because $100 million can flow through our other sectors of the local economy. The fuel recovery rates, the levelized energy adjustment clause in 2025 will be substantially lower than today's rates. We project the current LEAC rate of 17 cents will drop to about 11 cents per kilowatt hour in 2025 when the Ukadu plant and solar farms are completed, assuming fuel oil prices at $100 per barrel. This drop in ratepayer fuel costs represents a 35% decrease in the largest portion of a ratepayer's power bill. Total bills will drop 15 to 20%. Furthermore, power bills would be substantially less susceptible to high and erratic fuel oil prices, etc. Guam Power Authority has provided energy to our community for over 50 years and gained valuable experience in providing reliable and affordable energy. We have learned from the past when energy doesn't flow reliably to our customers. We've grown stronger and more resilient and work hard to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself. Let us not forget the load shedding days in the early and late 1990s and 2015. Within 3 years, the baseload power plant and renewable energy foundation necessary to achieve our energy goals will be built. The new Ukadu plant complies with federal consent decrees negotiated by GPA and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency enforced by the federal court. Guam has been non-compliant with U.S. EPA regulations since 2013. Compliance with a stipulated milestone avoids hundreds of millions of dollars, etc. Guam's energy demand will grow due to the expansion of military presence, availability of affordable housing, and commercial activities from new opportunities. This is welcome growth, but requires adequate capacity for reliable energy. The new Ukadu plant provides GPA with a capacity to meet current needs and future growth. Our existing aged base loads are old and are not adequate to meet the forecasted growth. Investments in Guam would be limited if there's no assurance the GPA has adequate energy capacity. The new plant, coupled with 25% renewable energy resources, will reduce annual sulfur emissions by 1,898 times, which is something that Clint has been crowing about since he ran for office. GPA will no longer burn dirty fuel, reducing emissions to less than 1% of the 1/10% of the 2019 air levels. The air quality for Guam, especially the PD area, will significantly improve. I ask every resident of Guam to support GPA as we work to complete the Ukadu plant and the renewable energy projects underway. Let's work together, especially over the next few years, to attain the goal of affordable, sustained energy prices. We are transitioning our island to clean, reliable, affordable energy, but it requires us all to do our part and make it happen, even if it means answering emails. Yeah. So Clint Rizal has been banging the drum for renewable energy, etc. Has been generally more critical of the CCU than I have, if that's possible. And he is either not paying attention, doesn't care, or wants to make it even harder on the Power Authority by not answering Beneventi's email about building that 43 megawatt plant in Petey, which Benevente assures us is absolutely necessary. So I go along with John Benevente, and John, you got support of Tall Tales here. The only thing that I can't support is you're paying fast and loose with employee as you were unclassified employee evaluations and the open government law in general.
It's a personal matter.
Yeah, you got to get over this. It's a personnel matter business. Start doing things the right way. But as far as your mission is concerned, generating electric power, we're here on Tall Tales. I think we're with them 100%, right, Jose? All right, let's take a short break here, and I'm going to come back to Troy and the land scams.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, so here we are, back on Tall Tales with Troy versus land scams. And Troy has done some really journeyman work here in digging into some real estate transactions or lack thereof and his blog Candid News. Some scholarly work. Real estate law is not easy even for lawyers unless he spent a lot of time working on real estate. Troy has laid out some really important things in his column here, and he deserves a lot of credit for shining a light on these things. So here we go. We start out with senators quiet on land scams that could cost each Guamanian $1,307. And he says, every Sunday at Mass, one of the lectors petitions Jesus Christ to hear our collective prayers. Among them, that civic leaders act with justice and mercy. We hear that, Lord, hear our prayer, right, Jose? If there's anything I've learned from the likes of Tim Rohr, Bob Klitzkie, and my Auntie Ernie Paris, it is that oftentimes justice requires our action and not just prayer. Over the past several weeks, Canada has been exposing a series of questionable and arguably illegal land transactions, from the mess the Waterworks Authority has made of its land grab and encroachment related to the Northern District wastewater treatment plant, to the bizarre circumvention of ancestral land laws so the governor can build a $1 billion medical campus near Eagles Field. A lot of money is at stake. These two land scandals, when all is said and done, have the potential to cost us taxpayers more than $200 million in additional costs, simply to satiate whatever grand plan and GWA and Governor Leon Guerrero have. The rightful owner of the land where the Northern District wastewater treatment plant sits, Cortec International, is suing the government of Guam for its encroachment and for its inverse condemnation of its properties in the surrounding areas. That doesn't even figure in the potential for other landowners in the Harmon Annex to join suit. As for the Back Road Medical Campus, experts in the field estimate it will cost upward of $100 million to prepare the site for a hospital, water and power infrastructure, road widening and hardening, environmental impact mitigation, etc. But why is Candid doing all this research? Isn't this the job of the Guam legislature? Well, they're more interested in providing war claims for everybody, regardless of when he died.
They already got that $150 million tagged.
Yeah. Aren't senators supposed to be all over stuff like this? We elected them to be our first branch of government, the more powerful one, because it's the one that's supposed to directly reflect and represent us. But where is their representation in this regard? More than $200 million is no small amount. Divided by the population of Guam, that's $1,307 for every single Guamanian. Or the gross receipts taxes we receive, we each would pay on $26,143 in groceries. Candid has asked Speaker Terlahi about both issues. On September 13, we sent her, the office of the Attorney General, and the Director of Land Management a lengthy email with a summary of those issues related to the NDWWTP land, and asked all three officers direct questions. The Speaker replied in September stating she would pull the documents associated with the issues and begin researching so she may be able to respond responsibly. She ought to have shared that technique with Clint. Mr. Lahi has since fallen ill from Wuhan virus. Prior to her illness, we asked her the following questions regarding the Manila land issue. 1. From continued public statements, it looks like the governor and Ancestral Lands and GITA are continuing to circumvent ancestral land claims laws. Have any of these officers or any officials in these offices met with you or consulted with you about negotiating a license or lease with the Navy? 2, same question as above, but as to the entire legislature itself, has the legislature been advised of details associated with the governor negotiating licenses and leases that affect ancestral claims? And what this is about is there are 18 families that own land on the back road to Anderson, also known as Hall Road, also known as Route 15. The area of the Eagles field where the Eagles, the youth football team Eagles plays football. 18 families own that land. It was condemned by the United States. And we have a statute on the books that says when the United States government returns land that had been condemned to the government of Guam is to convey it to the Ancestral Lands Commission. The Ancestral Lands Commission is then to do proper research and convey the land to the pre-condemnation owners of that land. Now, Troy's making the case here that the governor's talking about a 100-year lease between the U.S. government and the government of Guam to build that hospital. And he's proceeding on the basis that, well, you're just cutting the whole ancestral lands, pre-condemnation landowners out of that process. I don't know if that's exactly correct, because a leasehold interest is real property. And if that leasehold interest were conveyed to the government of Guam, I don't think there'd be anything stopping the government of Guam from conveying that to the Ancestral Lands Commission, other than the language that the United States government puts in all of these conveyances that says you got to use it for a public purpose or we're going to take it back, which hasn't stopped the government up until now and has only become an issue because of the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant, where the government of Guam issued a certificate of title to a successor in interest to Cortec, and now the director of land management has sued Cortec to void that certificate of title, saying that it was improperly issued. The United States came along and said, we don't care who wins between Gov Guam and Cortec, but we're just putting you on notice that if you conveyed that land, if you're using that land for anything other than a public purpose, we're going to take it back. So this all gets really, really complicated. Back to Eagles Field. So Troy makes the case that in order to avoid those 18 pre-condemnation owners gaining title to the land upon which Eagles Field sits, she has colluded with the military, with Joint Region Marianas, for the Navy to lease that property to the government of Guam for 100 years. Troy takes issue with this, which is right, and he's asked the Speaker and several others, what about this, guys? And Troy says, as we await her response, meaning Speaker Tetlahi, we have decided ask all members of the Guam legislature about these two issues. While Ms. Tetlahi is the chairwoman of the Legislative Land Committee and the Speaker, she essentially represents only one of 15 votes. In order for the legislature to do anything, 8 votes are required. Here is what we ask every member of the Guam legislature today. Please explain why, as a matter of public policy, the government should or should not continue its lawsuit involving Lot 10184-7. That's the lot upon which the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant is located. And that's a fair question. People in the legislature ought to be able to answer that question. If you're a senator, you really aren't permitted to plead ignorance. Oh, I'm not going to answer that because I don't know anything about it. Here's a second question. Will you vote to approve the governor's proposed 100-year lease of naval land for the new hospital, or do you prefer Oka Point? Troy's been beating the drum for Oka Point because it's already owned by the government. And I see a lot of the arguments. I can't think of a more awkward place to locate a hospital
than back road.
Than the back road to Anderson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not very accessible.
No. Okay. Let's take let's break for the big halftime show, and we'll come back to the back road to Anderson.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Employee vaccine mandate. I'm Marie Corsetti, Fox News. Reactions still pouring in after a federal judge put a halt, for now, on President Biden's vaccine mandate for businesses with 100 workers or more.
The Biden administration plans to fight the ruling, which came out of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in Louisiana. The state's Attorney General Jeff Landry praised the decision, writing, quote, "The president will not impose medical procedures on the American people without the checks and balances afforded by the Constitution." The ruling temporarily halts the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine requirement for workers at companies with more than 100 employees. It was set to go into place January 4th with fines for companies that don't comply. So far, the attorneys general in 11 states have filed lawsuits challenging the president's COVID vaccine requirement. And on Friday, Kansas's Democratic Governor Laura Kelly came out against the mandate.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff. And the Biden administration is reportedly working on potentially compensating families separated at the border.
Biden administration officials say that there will likely be payments, but how much those payments are is really up to the Justice Department. As that debate continues, more migrants continue to cross over here into Texas each day. Fox News went along with officers from the Department of Public Safety in Texas as part of Operation Lone Star. They detained a number of men who were on private property on a ranch. Only one of those men decided to run. It turns out he was a relatively well-known gang member with a lengthy criminal history, doing long stints in U.S. prisons in Georgia and in Florida for robbery. The officers examined his tattoos before transporting him.
Fox's Steve Harrigan and officials say a strong storm off the southeast coast caused some coastal flooding and high tides that approached rare levels along the South Carolina and Georgia coasts. Sunday morning's high tide reached 10.45 feet just east of Savannah, Georgia. The flooding closed a number of roads but did not cause major damage. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Here at Guam Auto Spot, we have the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars. Like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage, as low as $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Or this 2021 Buick Encore, as low as $237 per paycheck, 0 down for 72 months. Call 478-AUTO to schedule a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
Troops and patrols have deployed around Baghdad following the failed assassination attempt with armed drones that targeted Iraq's prime minister and his residence. The attack significantly raises tensions sparked by the refusal of Iran-backed militias to accept last month's parliamentary election results. And people are in mourning after the annual Astroworld Festival in Houston turned deadly as the crowd surged closer to the stage over the weekend.
Friday night, 8 people were killed, including a 14-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl. Officials declared it a mass casualty event around 9:30 p.m. when they became aware of multiple people collapsing as the crowd surged forward towards the stage. Witnesses said the show didn't actually stop, though, until more than 30 minutes later, after rapper Travis Scott appeared to finish his entire set. Travis Scott, a Houston native and founder of the Astroworld Festival, did briefly stop the show several times when he saw people that needed help. But in a video he posted to Instagram last night, he said he had no idea how bad things were, and he's devastated by what happened.
Fox's Garrett Tenney. Meanwhile, the city of Portland, Oregon is in a state of disarray with the city's police department front and center.
Portland is dealing with a public safety crisis since the defund the police movement. The homicide rate is at an all-time high, police staffing a record low, and officer morale is down. Since last year, more than $26 million has been cut from Portland's police budget. 84 sworn positions have been eliminated. At least 160 officers have left the department since last July, citing low morale and burnout. And although Portland PD is authorized to have 916 officers, they only have 788 on staff. Portland's mayor is urging city leaders to approve $5 million for the police department, though the police chief says $11 million would be ideal to accommodate the city's public safety needs.
Fox's Christina Coleman. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Fuel up today with the new $8 gasolina meal. 2 all-beef Nathan's hot dogs, a big bag of chips, regular-size M&Ms, and a 16-ounce gasolina energy drink. The brand new drink in a black can that brings a burst of energy. Drive in now and fire up your day with the $8 gasolina meal. Promo is only available at your favorite Circle K Guam locations while supplies last. Circle K, take it easy.
Everyone
has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
So here we are, another great halftime show here on Tall Tales. Everyone in our international radio listening audience, I'm sure, looks forward to that big halftime show. As soon as we get the Wuhan virus thing under control, we'll expand and go back to the synchronized card section in the grandstand. We can't do it right now.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So I left off talking about the location of the hospital that the governor wants to build. She wants to build it on land that is currently identified as Eagles Field out on Route 15. I've explained before that Route 15 has also been known as Hall Road, H-A-U-L, Hall, because it was built to transport people and construction materials from the BPM camp in Mangilau to the Anderson job site. BPM standing for Brown, Pacific, and Maxon, a joint venture construction company that did huge amounts of construction after the war to build up our base capabilities. Many of the people that came with Brown, Pacific, and Maxon stayed, went to work for the naval government after the construction was over. But anyhow, that's the reason we have the back road. It was built for that one particular purpose. And it's like a lot of our highways here on the island. When the Navy built the highways, they weren't thinking in terms of a 21st century community. They were thinking in terms of post-World War II military bases and connecting those military bases with roads. There was no road from Agate to Homatuk until 1956. So if you were in Agate and you wanted to go to Homatuk, you had to drive all the way around. I don't know when Cross Island Road was completed, but probably about the same time. So our street patterns are not like street patterns in a lot of places in the United States where if you miss a turn, you just go to the next turn, you go around the block because there are no blocks to go around. We have a lot of dead-end streets because our highway network, it was designed to connect bases. Anderson was connected to Naval Station by Route 1, named by General Larson Marine Drive, renamed by Governor Felix Camacho Marine Corps Drive. And Route 8 was designed to connect with Naval Air Station and so on. So Hall Road was only designed for hauling stuff from Mangilau to the rear gate of Anderson Air Force Base. So if you want to go to a location on Route 15 on the back road there are only two ingresses and egresses to that highway. You've either got to go to Mangilao and the Price Elementary School intersection, or drive all the way to Jigo, where God's-Narrow Road intersects with Route 15. So if you were a person in let's say somewhere between Dadido and Tamuning, and you had to call an ambulance, the fastest way for the ambulance to get you to the hospital wouldn't be to cut across there. It was probably like 3 miles as the crow flies. But you'd have to go either all the way around one way or the other, and it gets to be a long haul. It's a 2-lane road. It's not a very good road. In order for it to be serviceable, we'd have to dump millions of dollars into that road to service what the governor's planning there for her health complex. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Having a hospital on Oka Point, on the other hand, something we've done before. We know how it works. It's a much more favorable location. The government owns a lot of land up there, although it's given some of it away. So I'm with Troy on that one for sure. Troy then goes on to talk about a major Tumam land scam that calls title business, real estate industry into question. This is a little complicated, so let's get out the law and order notebooks. A lawsuit in the Superior Court styled ULG Inc. versus Mary Leon Guerrero, Colin Leon Guerrero, Columbus Development Corporation, Pacific American Title and Insurance Company, and others starts off as any other old land scam in this Isla de Ladrones. When the Spanish first landed here in 1521, they got into a little scrap with the local folks, and they accused the local folks of coming on board and stealing things off the ships. So for a long, long time, what we now refer to as the Islas Marianas were known as Islas de Ladrones, Island of the Thieves. We're trying to live that down. So Troy says that what these parties, ULG, Mary Leon Guerrero, Colin Leon Guerrero, etc., starts off as any other old land scam in this Isla de Ladrones. At first glance, it's just one part of a family alleging that another part of the family illegally sold property she didn't own outright and never shared the proceeds of the sale. Just another day in Guam, Troy says. And then, when you dig deeper into the lawsuit, you find that a reputable real estate agent, a household named broker, a lawyer, and to create essentially counterfeit land ownership that benefit a company linked to billionaire Dr. Lucio Tan. The plot thickens. The same Dr. Tan who only weeks ago ostracized his son-in-law, Joseph Chua, from his companies globally. That included Goodwin Development Corporation, Guam, which for more than 2 decades Mr. Chua ran on behalf of his father-in-law. Goodwin includes the Micronesia Mall. As I recall, it's the old San Miguel Brewery also, Goodwin Development. This is going to take a few stories to unravel. We've been at this for weeks. The lawsuit started with a complaint filed on October 19, 2020 by 3 Leon Guerrero siblings who lived modestly off island. That would be Peter U. Leon Guerrero, Rita L.G. Tovis, and Bernadette L.G. Vandegrift. Together with their brother Greg, who died in 2013, they owned a 1/3 interest of the land where Guam Beachfront Residence is. That's the old Tropicana Hotel, if you can remember that, down by the Daiichi, the Cockaway, and then I think it was Tropicana and then Cockaway Hotel. Let's see, so they owned a 1/3 interest in that land, a bull cart trail adjacent to the hotel, and the land across the street on San Vittorius Road from where there is a car rental company operating. It's pretty valuable pieces of dirt here. The three Leon Guerreros are suing, among other people, their brother's widow, Mary Leon Guerrero, and her son and their nephew, Colin Leon Guerrero. 2 to the 16th century moniker we earned from the Spaniards. Guam is, now this is Troy saying this isn't me, I'm just reading what Troy wrote down. Guam is the land where fights commonly break out in front of a relative's funeral casket right before the lid closes as families fight over the chinchulli box. Troy. Or the land left in limbo by the relative's desk. And sometimes crafty and shrewd relatives take a step further and end up in court for stealing land. Isla de Ladrones indeed. In civil case 776-2020, the Leon Guerrero siblings allege that the 3 lots which were under the control of a corporation they and Mary were shareholders in, that would be ULG Inc., were illegally sold. On November 29, 2019, Mary, purporting to be acting as ULG's president and treasurer, signed and filed a 2019 annual report which falsely stated that ULG shares are owned 749 each by Mary and Colin, and 1 each by Pamela and Anthony, and that Mary is ULG's president and treasurer, Colin its secretary, the lawsuit alleges. Pamela and Anthony are cousins of the Leon Guerreros. Peter, Rita, and Bernadette, owning 75% of ULG's shareholding interests, did not consent to their shares of ULG stock being transferred to Mary, Colin, Pamela, and Anthony, nor did they elect Mary as ULG president and treasurer, or Colin as secretary. This is all stuff coming out of the court papers. The lawsuit continues. On December 13, 2019, 2 weeks after filing the false 2019 annual report, Mary, purporting to act as ULG's president and treasurer, executed a warranty deed purporting to transfer title to ULG's interest in the properties to Columbus Development Corporation. Upon information and belief, Columbus paid approximately $2 million for ULG's 1/3 interest in the properties, but Mary kept all the money for herself. Mary was not a rich woman prior to this sale. He was an everyday Guamanian like most of us. How did a person with no experience in real estate and no personal resources to be influential among power brokers pull off a multi-million-dollar land transaction that bypassed documented evidence at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, the rigors of a preliminary title report, and all the checks and balances that happen while escrow occurs on a real estate sale? This isn't some ordinary piece of property in Santa Rita or the back roads of Dededo. And Mary isn't alleged to have done this on her own either. This is Tumum property. There's a multi-story hotel on it. A billionaire is building a mall in the property behind one of the lots. And in the middle of this lawsuit, that billionaire fired the man whose underlings are also named as defendants in the lawsuit. Goodwin's Philip Schrage and Alex Lim. Schrage is commonly known to be the general manager of Micronesia Mall. According to documents, he and Lim are associated with Columbus Development Corporation, a company with no employees, a shell corporation. According to the allegations and assertions made by plaintiffs, all of this happened through a series of greedy and corrupt acts involving a real estate listing agent, a real estate broker, a title company, and a lawyer who not only owns the title company, but has a unit at Guam beachfront residences. Whenever a person does business with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, the clerk at whatever division you go to requires that you sign in and state the purpose of your visit with the documents you wish to inspect or copy. Those sign-in sheets are public documents that are saved by the agency. On November 11, 2019, Mary Leon Guerrero and real estate agent Ramona Cepeda Seablung signed in at the Business Privilege Tax Branch to inspect ULG's corporate documents. The same documents that show that Mary was only a one-quarter owner of ULG and her in-laws held the majority of the corporation's stock. 18 days later, on November 29, 2019, the lawsuit alleges Mary falsely changed the corporate ownership to give herself the ability to dispose of ULG's interest in the Tumum properties. After this, the transactions moved quickly, and a lot of people in different quarters of the multi-million-dollar deal make a lot of money, except for the actual owners of the real property, the Leon Guerreros. According to court documents, Ms. Seablung became the listing agent through broker Philip Law under the brokerage firm, The Property Shop. Ms. Seablung appears in hundreds of pages of communications among her client, title company, Pacific American Title Company, or PATICO, the law firm of Berman, O'Connor, and Mann, Columbus Development Corporation, and Goodwin Development Corporation in what appears to be an incestuous confluence of parties. A series of documents, all filed in court, show Columbus Development Corporation, represented by attorney Michael Berman, bought ULG's interests a few days after Mary allegedly hijacked the company. In these documents, Ramona Seablung discloses that Columbus and Goodwin are both owned by Dr. Lucio Tan, and the company that used to run the title insurance company and conduct escrow was used to run the title and insurance and conduct escrow with Pacific American Title Company, or PATICO. The conspiracy, if one exists, began months before Mary allegedly changed the corporate documents under false pretenses. On March 22, 2019, attorney Michael Berman wrote to the title clerk of PATICO stating, "We are assisting Columbus Development with a purchase agreement. In this connection, would your office please provide our office with a preliminary title report on an expedited basis for the below listed noted parcels, lot 5134-1 Tumum and lot 51-34-2-1 Tumum." The PTR and accompanying title insurance are supposed to be done following due diligence in researching the real property. The PTR should have revealed the three Leon Guerrero 75% in ULG. They're stopping the sale, thereby stopping the sale unless two of the three agreed to it. That didn't happen. PATICO did not report the Leon Guerreros ownership of ULG Columbus, represented by Berman, bought the property. Marion Cullen made more than $2 million from the sale, and Ramona Siblung and Phil Law made hundreds of thousands from the commission on the sale. According to a March 27, 2019 Patico invoice, the preliminary title report for the property was billed to the law office of Berman, O'Connor, and Mann. That's the law firm of attorney Michael Berman. Attorney Michael Berman is legal counsel and one of the owners of Patico. Troy wraps it up by saying, stay tuned to the next installment of this investigative report. Some really heavy-duty stuff, Troy. Yeah.
It sounds like a Netflix series.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. It really does. Well, he kicked off the whole thing in an admirable fashion by mentioning my name, so I wish him all the best. Okay, so next on the card is Yankee Doodle versus Brandon, but I've got a caller here in the green room, none other than Another Joe. He says, recant Tuman story. Any transactions happen online? I kind of doubt it, Another Joe, but we got just a couple minutes here before the seventh inning stretch, so good afternoon, Another Joe.
Yeah, good, Bob. Is any of this considered fraudulent, or a lot of it is fraudulent, and did that occur online?
Well, real property transactions don't occur online. Real property transactions occur at the Department of Land Management, where papers are, filed and stamped and that sort of thing. And this article also talks about papers at the Department of Revenue and Taxation. So I don't think any of these things are private documents, but I don't think the government publishes them. It would be nice. And that's my idea of transparency. If everything that every government agency did could be peeked at online, I think it would have a salutary effect. But that's not the way it is right now, Another Joe.
Yeah, they have these advertisements for property title protection, the commercials, and where people claim to be an owner, right, and take out loans, and then the real owner is out of property and has to pay the loan or the debt or something. I'm not sure. Is this somewhere in that ballpark, or is it totally different?
No, according to what Troy has presented here, there are no strangers to any of these transactions. Whereas the advertisements you hear online, let's say that you're living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and you own Blackacre, and somebody maybe in Colorado or Texas or somebody who's really good at doing this kind of stuff is able to do title searches online, which you can do in some jurisdictions. And he stumbles across Blackacre and he sees that the owner of Blackacre is Another Joe. So he hokies up a document that appears to have the signature of Another Joe on it. And then he gets that document to somebody in Santa Fe who takes it to the land registration office. The paper is recorded showing that you sold the land and you sold Blackacre to Mr. Schwartz or whoever. And then they just let it alone for 2 or 3 months. And then Mr. Schwartz would go to the bank and take out a mortgage on Blackacre. And the title papers appear to be okay. They appraised the land, etc. And you don't find out about this for quite some time. But the scammers here are strangers to the transactions, and they're strangers to the owners. That's not what Troy is writing about here. He's talking about people that know each other very well.
Well, I hope there isn't more of this sort of thing occurring. I know there had been, but on Guam, and especially regards to online. Hey, thanks for your time, I'll just keep listening.
All right. Okay, we're going to take our break here for the seventh inning stretch. When the seventh inning stretch is over, I'm going to come back to the most dangerous man in the ballpark.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guam Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Okay, so here we are, seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field in Chicago. A great day for baseball. And as I'm wandering around the baseball park here, the Wrigley Field, the world's most beautiful ballpark, I hear a strange sound in the background. And sure enough, it's the most dangerous man in the ballpark, none other than our Carl. Carl, did they have you throw out the first baseball of the season this year?
Yeah, but they had to protect some of the people in the stands. I might hit somebody.
Yeah, that's why you're so dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah, I as much as possible in the afternoon, pretty much every afternoon when I'm doing something, driving or doing yard work or working inside the house, I've got Tall Tales in the background. And I have to give it to Troy. I mean, that was gripping. It really was. I just said a few times, wow, that is something. I can't even imagine the amount of work that had to go into piecing all that together. That's real journalism. In an excellent book that I've been reading by Mark Levin, it's titled American Marxism, and in it he talks about how Marxism has, American Marxism, the specific American brand of Marxism, has saturated so much of society. And one of the chapters is entitled Propaganda, Censorship, and Subversion, and he talks about how it's seeped into journalism. And it's a brand of journalism called community journalism or public journalism. And it's basically the same thing that's happened in history and other fields, in that people, it's not enough to be, as Howard Zinn admitted, he didn't want to convey accurate history. He wanted to change the world. So this public journalism and community journalism has changed journalists from reporters reporting facts and data and statistics and, just the facts, to being advocates for a particular position and selectively picking and choosing what they report and how they slant the story. And one of the things locally that's been a problem is how I always see it, in these stories about people at the hospital. I always see the phrase and similar phrases, COVID-related, COVID-related deaths. I never see any elaboration on what exactly they mean by COVID-related. How many people are in the hospital with comorbidities, and how many people died of comorbidities as opposed to, the virus alone. Because the statistics I've seen, the vast majority of cases, the people died because of comorbidities that affect their immune system. So anyway, Troy is doing a bang-up job, and as long as people like him and you are, calling these things out, I have hope for the future of Guam. That's excellent, just really good, real, actual journalism.
Yes, it is.
He needs to teach a class, maybe at UOG, and title it Real Journalism 101.
Good idea, our Carl.
Exactly. Kudos to Troy and to you, too. I appreciate it. Great show.
Okay, well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, our Carl.
Likewise.
So long. Yeah, so Troy digs into stuff that the mainstream, the media, what is it? Not the mainstream media. I learned not to call it that. It's the cartel, the media cartel. Unless it's something really simple or something for the daily news, something that they can use to project a particular agenda, they're not really that much interested in it. See, I see a lot of things that are newsworthy that just don't get picked up by the papers or by TV. Of course, we know that PNC is very good at picking up press releases and running with them. Okay, next item on the card, this comes from my friend Jonathan Turley, and I've labeled it on the card, Yankee Doodle versus Brandon. And what it's about is this new saying, let's go Brandon. And this is what Turley says. Roughly 250 years ago, a political insult by British troops during the American Revolution was converted into a rallying cry by the colonials. Yankee Doodle Dandy was intended to mock the Continental Army as unsophisticated dandies. Now, if you don't know what a dandy is someone who dresses really, really nice, right? A male, what we used to call a man who dresses very fancily and very nice. Yeah. Fancy, yeah. Yankee Doodle Dandy was intended to mock Continental Army as unsophisticated dandies, much maligned by militiamen, but the maligned militiamen turned it around to mock the British after defeats like Yorktown. The song is a lasting example of how symbols of contempt can become symbols of defiance. In a curious way, Let's Go Brandon has become a similarly unintended political battle cry. It derives from an October 2 interview with race car driver Brandon Brown after he won his first NASCAR Xfinity Series race. During the interview, NBC reporter Kelly Stavast's questions were drowned out by loud and clear chants of F*** Joe Biden. You can imagine what that word was. Stavast quickly and inexplicably declared, "You can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon." So it's just what Carl was talking about.
Nope.
Yeah, this guy Stavast wanted to obscure the fact that a lot of people were very unhappy with President Biden, so he invented something and put it on the air. Stavast's denial or misrepresentation of the obvious instantly became a symbol of what many Americans perceive as a media bias in favor of the Biden administration. Indeed, some in the media immediately praised Stavast for her, quote, smooth save and being a quick-thinking reporter. But the episode was reminiscent of a reporter standing in front of burning buildings during last year's riots and calling them peaceful protests. We remember that, Kenosha, CNN reporter, burning building in the background. Well, here we are at these mostly peaceful protests. Indeed, even the original profane chant seemed directed as much at the media as Biden, creating an undeniable backdrop to news coverage. The three-word slogan is now emblazoned across T-shirts, coffee mugs, and even billboards. An anti-Biden, quote, "Let's go Brandon" hip-hop song hit the top of the charts on iTunes soon. There were 4 such songs with the same refrain. The top song was banned on sites like YouTube and Instagram as spreading harmful false information. Yet the effort to bar people from listening to the song only fueled the interest and the movement. It's what we call the Barbra Streisand effect. The media reaction has fulfilled the underlying narrative too, with commentators growing increasingly shrill and denouncing its use. NPR, National Public Radio, state radio in the United States, denounced the chant as, quote, vulgar, while writers at the Washington Post and other newspapers condemned it as offensive. Yeah. CNN's John Avalon called it, quote, non-patriotic, while CNN political analyst Joe Lockhart compared it to coded rhetoric from Nazis, the KKK, and ISIS. You know, you couldn't make a better, you couldn't prove this up better than these guys have done.
These guys are clowns.
They are, and they're so obvious that, you know, they're not content with hauling out a Glock and shooting themselves in the foot. They got to use an automatic weapon, right?
Right.
The more the media has cried foul, however, the more people have picked up the chant. Then a Southwest Airlines pilot reportedly used the expression at the end of a sign-off with passengers on a flight from Houston to Albuquerque. Associated Press reporter Colleen Long apparently was so irate that she demanded access to the cockpit.
Arrest her.
And was almost expelled from the flight. She admits that, quote, I was asking them to open lock cockpit and probably sounded insane. Washington Post editor Kathleen Decker described the use of a slogan as, quote, vulgarity stand-in from Southwest Air cockpit. Liberals called for an investigation and the firing of the pilot. CNN analyst Asha Ragappa even compared the pilot to an ISIS sympathizer. As an experiment, I'd love for a Southwest Air pilot to say, long live ISIS. But what if the pilot had simply knelt in protest of the Biden administration as passengers boarded or deplaned? Well, that'd be okay if he knelt. Well, many of these same commentators have supported the NFL's kneelers and insisted that any effort to prevent their protest was racist or denial of free speech. As I wrote previously, employees do not have a right to protest on the job, whether in Starbucks or in sports stadiums. Nevertheless, when then President Trump condemned the NFL kneelers as unpatriotic, some Democrats in Congress call for his impeachment. When the state Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg also criticized the kneelers, journalist Katie Couric edited out most of her comments, saving her, helping her. The fact is that neither Southwest pilot nor Colin Kaepernick have a legal right to protest at work. I also believe it's inappropriate for a pilot to use his position and the captive audience on his plane to proselytize or politics. Let's Go Brandon is as much a criticism of the media as it is of President Biden, however. Many in the media have embraced advocacy journalism and rejected objectivity in reporting, In their view, readers and viewers are now to be educated rather than merely informed. That's what our Carl was talking about.
Indoctrinated.
Yeah. Many reporters reject both sidesism, the need to offer a balanced account of the news. Thus, stories like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal were killed before the 2020 presidential election by Twitter, and most media companies. After Biden was elected, some media belatedly confirmed the authenticity of the laptop. We live in an age of unprecedented censorship by private companies. The media has shown that you can have an effective state media without direct regulation by the state, because today's media adheres to common narratives out of ideological or economic interests without the threat of state coercion. The Biden administration and the National Science Foundation are funding research on a new tool designed to give media an even more immediate response to, quote, misinformation. The $750,000 grant to Temple University tracks news reports as a part of Trust and Authenticity in Communication Systems initiatives. But the effort to rebuild the nation's news trust is premised on flagging content that might result in negative, unintended outcomes, like the triggering of uncivil, polarizing discourse, audience misrepresentation, the production of misinformation, and the perpetuation of false narratives. Such algorithms promise even greater consistency in messaging and framing of the news. In other words, Brandon is going to get even more popular because such efforts are not really working. Censorship and media bias have never really changed minds or shaped lasting public opinion. You cannot get the public to hear F** Joe Biden, but think, let's go, Brandon. Biden's popularity is tanked despite an openly protective and enabling media, with 71% of the public believing the country is going in the wrong direction. According to one poll, the reason is that the media is now singing from the same choir book, while most Americans have tuned it out. That brings us back to Yankee Doodle Dandy and the perils of mockery. Many Americans interpreted false race day account as an act of open contempt for viewers who were expected to simply believe what they were told was happening, despite seeing and hearing something else. Instead, they have now used that phrase as a rallying cry for defiance. It's their way of telling both the president and the media to mind the music and the step, because they're marching to a different tune. Well, having gone through this whole thing, I just got one thing to say, Jose.
What's that, Bob?
Let's go, Brandon.
There you go.
And, you know, I've been following the commentators since the election in Virginia. And there's an awful lot of sentiment that the public is finally waking up. They've had enough of critical race theory, enough of the media cover-ups, etc. So when they had a chance, they said, we're not doing this anymore. We're electing Youngkin. And there were other surprises and upsets. And according to Michael Matt, who I've talked about on the show before, the Remnant, he said, this is the turnaround. Now we're going to start winning. And I think he's got a good point. I'm going to do the best I can here to call these folks out and tell the truth when the opportunity presents itself. And I was thinking that perhaps every show I should end with that phrase. Let's go, Brandon. What do you think, Jose?
I concur.
All right, so remind me from now on, at the end of the show, let's go, Brandon. We got 10 more minutes before the end of the show. We got to head for Churchill Downs first, but let me practice here. Let's go, Brandon.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch on Tall Tales. I got about 8 more minutes to go to wind up the show here today. The last item on the card is Caroline Products versus the Insular cases. And, you know, today, if you could pass the quiz at the end of the show, you might be on your way to being a lawyer. It's been pretty heavily infused with legal concepts. I don't know if I'll be able to finish this one today, Caroline Products versus the Insular cases, but it's worth starting. We've been told over and over again that the Insular cases are what's standing in the way of the island of Guam being people on the island of Guam receiving SSI, Supplemental Security Income, because Downs versus Bidwell holds that the Constitution does not follow the flag ex proprio vigere, and that the Congress doesn't have to treat the territories the same way it treats any of the 50 states. The Congress, the Department of Justice, in defending a case called United States versus Viello Madero, will tell you that the reason that people living in the territories, with one exception, are not eligible for SSI, Supplemental Security Income, is because people in the territories don't pay into the United States Treasury, with a couple of exceptions. So does that make a difference? Now, whenever you hear the Neil Weirs and the other people, banging the discrimination drum, 4 million people live in the territories, and 97% of them are minorities, and do you think that people should be treated differently because nobody ever talks about the fact that territories don't pay federal income tax. And that's the reason
it's inconvenient, Bob.
It's an inconvenient truth that really kind of spoils the narrative, doesn't it? So this article starts out here. This is something I picked up from Vox. It's written by Ian Millhiser. United States versus Viello Madero is a case about an impoverished American citizen forced to repay a debt to the federal government that he only learned about fairly recently and he cannot possibly afford. Starting right out, let's appeal to emotion, right? It's also the case about colonialism and the legacy of the U.S. government's discriminatory treatment of Puerto Rico. And it's a case about the ways American democracy functions and whether insulating that democracy from an ideological judiciary is worth allowing callous laws to remain in place. So it gets into something I really like to talk about, which is the interplay between the judiciary and the popular branch of government, the legislature, the Congress, etc. And I'm a Democrat. No, I haven't resigned from the Republican Party. I'm a Democrat with a small d. And it's my position that most decisions affecting the public should be made by the popular branch, by the legislature, not by politicians in black robes, courts, judges, etc. And there's a very pragmatic reason that I feel that way, and that is this, that when the legislature decides important questions, we often come up with consensus. And people think that people don't understand the word consensus, and they oftentimes use it improperly. Consensus doesn't mean that everybody was really, well, yeah, we reached a consensus on that issue. Doesn't mean that everybody was just really overjoyed with the decision that was made. Consensus means that a group made a decision that every member of the group, although he may not be overjoyed with the decision, can live with it. That's what consensus means. So legislatures are designed to provide consensus. That's why we have multi-member legislatures. If you only got one person making decisions, you're not going to have consensus. So the product of legislatures is consensus. So quite often, over a long period of time, the legislature doesn't give anyone anything they really, really want, but it gives everybody something they can live with. Now, I'm speaking in very broad terms here, but that's the way it works. In a court, you don't have consensus. You have winners or losers. You couldn't come up, on, for instance, the number one judicial question of the day, abortion. I start out with this when it's abortion. When is it okay to kill a helpless, innocent baby? My answer to that is never. Where would I compromise on that? 10%? 20%? Only on even-numbered days? Only for people whose last name doesn't begin with K? There's no compromise possible there. It's not a compromisable issue. If the matter had been decided by the legislature, different states would have handled it in a different fashion. People in Utah don't see the things the same way that people in Florida see them, or New York, or New Jersey. But because the Supreme Court jumped in and took it over in 1973, we're stuck with it. 61 million babies have been killed, and the battle still rages because it should never have been decided by the judiciary in the first place. So that's what this article gets into. Democracy versus the elites in black robes. It goes on to say this. Luis Valle Madero, the man staring down the impossible to repay debt. The government says he is doomed to this fate because of a seemingly unimportant decision he made several years ago. He moved to Puerto Rico. SSI is a welfare program for many of the most vulnerable people in the nation, aged, blind, or disabled individuals who lack the means to support themselves. It's not an especially generous program. Maximum annual benefits for an eligible individual are currently little more than $9,500. But after, I'm going to call him VM. Yeah, okay, I'm going to come back to this tomorrow because it's important. It touches on a lot of issues that we discuss here a lot of time. So that's the end of the show today. I'll see you tomorrow. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Employee vaccine mandate. I'm Marie Corsetti, Fox News. Reactions still pouring in after a federal judge put a halt, for now, on President Biden's vaccine mandate for businesses with 100 workers or more.
The Biden administration plans to fight the ruling, which came out of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in Louisiana. The state's Attorney General Jeff Landry praised the decision, writing, quote, "The president will not impose medical procedures on the American people without the checks and balances afforded by the Constitution." The ruling temporarily halts the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine requirement for workers at companies with more than 100 employees. It was set to go into place January 4th with fines for companies that don't comply. So far, the attorneys general in 11 states have filed lawsuits challenging the president's COVID vaccine requirement. And on Friday, Kansas's Democratic Governor Laura Kelly came out against the mandate.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff. And the Biden administration is reportedly working on potentially compensating families separated at the border.
Biden administration officials say that there will likely be payments, but how much those payments are is really up to the Justice Department. As that debate continues, more migrants continue to cross over here into Texas each day. Fox News went along with officers from the Department of Public Safety in Texas as part of Operation Lone Star. They detained a number of men who were on private property on a ranch. Only one of those men decided to run. It turns out he was a relatively well-known gang member with a lengthy criminal history, doing long stints in U.S. prisons in Georgia and in Florida for robbery. The officers examined his tattoos before transporting him.
Fox's Steve Harrigan, and officials say a strong storm off the southeast coast caused some coastal flooding and high tides that approached rare levels along the South Carolina and Georgia coasts. Sunday morning's high tide reached 10.45 feet just east of Savannah, Georgia. The flooding closed a number of roads but did not cause major damage. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The Voices America trusts. Download it now. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, publisher of The Federalist, and I'm inviting you to join a new